Welcome back to Pach-Attack. This is one of our many pre-E3 editions, so if you watch this and all the news is out, please don't say I'm a moron, because I'm just guessing at most of this stuff, so we'll find out. Okay, from the Ask Pack forums, you got a question from Attacker. With the low stock prices of game publishers we see now compared to a couple of years ago, do you think we will see rising stock prices once the PS4 and the next Xbox are released? All right, that's actually my day job, so not a bad question. Yeah, that's why I have an outperform in Wedbush jargon. That means buy. I have an outperform on, I think, all of the game publishers, public ones except Ubisoft and Nintendo. I like Ubisoft, so I'm probably one of these days going to revisit my thinking about it. My only knock on Ubisoft is that they're a victim of their own success, that the Assassin's Creed number last year is a tough one to improve upon. And they've got a big, thriving business in Just Dance. It's going to be hard to comp because I just don't see Just Dance being as big on the Wii U as it was on the Wii. The other guys, yeah, I think Activision, Electronic Arts, Take-Two, are all pretty heavily dependent upon the success of both the Sony and the Microsoft consoles. All three of those guys are a lot less focused on Nintendo's consoles, both handheld and home console. And so, you know, if you look at the revenues of the three companies for the last 5 years, probably less than 5% of revenue came from Nintendo platforms, and you know, depending on the company, probably something around 50% of revenue came from PlayStation and Xbox. So they're pretty heavily leveraged to it. I think that a very successful next Xbox, a very successful PS4 should take the stocks higher. The question is, will the next gen consoles be successful? So investors right now are being asked to make a bet. And I think the most important thing is we don't know what they're going to charge. So I could tell you, you know, if the next Xbox is $100, they're going to sell a gajillion units. You know, look up gajillion. They'll sell 100 million units if it's $100, and they'll sell 100 million units pretty fast. If it's $1,000, they'll sell 1 million units, and not any more after that. So, you know, depending on price, you're going to get a big uptake or not a big uptake. And so it's really hard to make a bet on a publisher now, and that's why stock prices have kind of remained low. I think if we get confidence after the press conferences, after E3, after launch, that in fact these consoles are going to sell really well, then I think the publishers are going to continue to appreciate. They're all coming off of lows, all of them including Nintendo and Ubisoft. Everybody's up about 20 to 40% off of their lows, and you know, in EA's case about 70% off their low. But they've got a lot of room to go. I mean, if you look at conventional valuation for stocks, most stocks trade at a multiple that is somehow related to the market multiple. Multiple just means the number of, if you look at the share price, let's just pretend the stock is at 10. If you think you think the company's going to earn $1, its multiple is 10 times. 10 times $1 equals 10. The market multiple right now is about 18 times next year's earnings. EA, Activision, Take-Two all trade less than that. Nintendo trades less than that. Ubisoft trades less than that. So, you know, I think it's really easy to presume that all of these publishers, if the video game market gets healthy, are going to trade at least up to the market multiple, and if the video game market is really good, they'll trade above the market multiple. Just to compare and contrast, stocks like LinkedIn and Netflix traded 100 or more times forward earnings. So, you know, I don't think 100 multiple is likely for a publisher. A 20 multiple could happen. It absolutely could happen, and especially if people have confidence in, you know, in the business. So as you decide which stocks to invest your 401k money in or your lunch money in, you know, look at the guys that you think have the best shot of growing over the next cycle. My picks of the stocks I cover are Electronic Arts, Activision, and Take-Two. I think they're a better bet than Nintendo and Ubisoft. Good question. Got a question from Twitter from @DogMantis. That's a good one too. Do you think Oculus Rift stands a chance? Also, do you think next-gen consoles will support the Rift? No and no. Oculus Rift is really cool. peripherals are just impossible. I mean, it's a really cool technology. I really like it. I think it's going to be hard to get a lot of software that supports it. I think anybody who's going to try to sell an add-on, peripheral, it's just impossible, because let's say that they sell 1 million of them, to attach to the next Xbox. Who's going to make a game with an addressable market of 1 million? I think that's an impossible business model. So great technology. I think the problem with Oculus Rift is it's kind of coming out right when next-gen consoles are launching. Had it come out 4 years ago, I think one of Microsoft or Sony would have bought them, would have incorporated it into the console, would have shipped it with every console, everybody would have it, and you get really cool game experiences. I think the only way Oculus Rift can actually work is if they're included in the next-gen console. And I don't know if we're going to have one. I mean, this generation is pressing the limits of our, stretching the limits of our display capability. I mean, how much better do you need than 60 frames a second, 1080p? I just, again, I vilified on the internets for saying 240 frames a second. I was saying that illustratively, like, sure, games can do it. Why do we care? And I don't think we do care. And so maybe when we get to 8K displays, but that's about 10 years out before people really embrace that technology, we'll have new consoles. But again, Oculus Rift, you don't need a display because the Rift is the display. I don't think it has a prayer. I think it's a really cool technology. Again, I like it. I would love to see them succeed because you want to encourage that kind of innovation. I just don't think they're going to get manufacturer support from the console makers or publisher support, so don't really see it working. We have a question from Twitter from @asing0208. 0208 is my kid's birthday. I have identical twins, February 8th. I don't think Asing is one of my kids. Could have been. What do you think of Riot Games? Is League of Legends success sustainable? Do you see a future IPO? I think Riot Games is an audacious company. I think that you had a couple of, at the time I believe they were 27-year-old guys. Brandon Beck was one of them. These guys are USC grads who were out of school like 4 or 5 years, and they're like, we can make this free-to-play MOBA, and we're going to make a ton of money. And it's one of those things that probably had been tried hundreds of times. These guys pulled it off. So I'm impressed. I really doubted it when they explained it to me. I'm really impressed. This is far beyond what anybody would have ever thought. As far as an IPO and whether the success is sustainable, it's hard to say the success will be sustainable. I mean, it's hard to keep mixing it up. They're trying, and I think it wears thin after a while, but then again, I would have thought World of Warcraft would have been done years ago, and that keeps going. So I think the answer is that for some people, League of Legends will be, their favorite game for another 10 or 15 years. Let's hope that Riot can introduce a second game or a third game and kind of take the pressure off. I think we're seeing that with Blizzard now. They're going to introduce Titan, one of these days, and take the pressure off World of Warcraft. So sustainable probably for at least another 5 years. And if you look at the Twitch numbers on League of Legends, the numbers are crazy. I mean, there are millions of people who actually really care into it. There are shows on Twitch that are like talking head commentators who are saying, we're talking about breaking down all the plays in League of Legends tournaments. So yeah, the game's got some legs for a while. As far as an IPO, Riot sold most of its stock to Tencent. So it's already a public company. It's part of a much bigger public company in China. So no, I don't think they're going to do a separate IPO. If you're interested in investing in League of Legends or Riot, you have to buy Tencent stock. If you buy Tencent stock, you're investing in a lot of other businesses in China. So it's not a pure play, but it's a pretty decent gaming company. Good question, thank you. All right, fellow babies, thanks for joining us this week. If you'd like to submit a question, you can do so at the link below. If you would like to submit a question through Twitter, I have a new producer. We've decided not to make my new producer a Twitter star, so we're going to try to make this a little more antiseptic. Please send the questions on Twitter to me, @Michael and please make sure you copy @GameTrailers and use the hashtag AskPac. Now that's a whole lot of characters. I know that's going to cut your question in half. So try to be industrious in how you ask your questions on Twitter. It's okay with us if you actually use more than one tweet to send a longer question. We'll be fine with it. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next week. All right, fellow babies, you can see more episodes of Pach-Attack on GameTrailers.com, or you can click on the videos to the right of me and see some of our other shows. Thanks for joining us. This is a profit deal.
Very deadpan delivery.
GT Origin.
League. Boo!